Most people asking, "How do I get rich?" are secretly hoping for a shortcut. A hot stock tip, a viral side hustle, a lottery ticket dressed up as a business strategy. What I'm going to give you today is none of that, and it's going to be far more valuable because of it. This is the unfiltered, unsexy, brutally honest roadmap to building real, lasting wealth. And if you can handle the truth of what that actually requires, you'll be light years ahead of nearly everyone around you. Before we talk strategy, let's establish one foundational truth: the path to serious wealth, think $20 million net worth and beyond, is almost never fast. Even on an accelerated track, you are likely looking at a decade of your life, minimum. The average self-made person who reaches that level does so around age 50. High finance professionals in hedge funds or private equity might get there in their late 30s or 40s. Real estate operators and lawyers may not cross that threshold until their late 50s or 60s. Why does this matter? Because if you walk into entrepreneurship expecting a quick win, you will quit. And most people do quit. Not because they lacked talent, but because they had an unrealistic mental model of the timeline. There's a rule worth tattooing on your brain early. Everything takes 4 times longer and costs 4 times more than you expect. Internalize that, and you've already outprepared the majority of aspiring entrepreneurs. Here is the core mechanism of wealth creation, and it really is this simple. You need to build equity in something. Specifically, equity in a company that either generates strong, scalable cash flow or has enough growth potential that a larger company will eventually want to acquire it. That means entrepreneurship, not freelancing. Not a side hustle that tops out at $10,000 a month. A real, scalable business, one that can eventually operate without you running every function inside it. This idea is central to Felix Dennis's book, How to Get Rich, one of 3 books I'd strongly recommend, alongside Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things and M.J. DeMarco's Unscripted. Dennis built a publishing empire, magazines like Maxim and PC Pro, and his core philosophy was simple: own as much of your company as you possibly can, for as long as you possibly can. Every percentage point of equity you give away early is potentially worth tens or hundreds of times more at the exit event. Consider this example. You start a company and raise $1 million in year 1 by giving away 50%. You and a co-founder split the remaining half, leaving each of you with 25%. 10 years later, the company sells for $100 million. Your cut? $25 million. Before taxes and fees. Now flip the scenario. You bootstrap first. You build a minimum viable product, get real customers, prove actual demand. And then you raise that same $1 million, but now at a $10 million valuation instead of $2 million. You only give away 10%. Same $100 million exit, but now you walk away with $45 million. That's not a small difference. That's a life-altering one. The principle is straightforward. Protect your equity like it's the most valuable asset you own. Because it is. This is where most aspiring entrepreneurs get stuck, and honestly, it's where the thinking gets interesting. The best businesses tend to emerge from the intersection of 3 things. First, a skill where you can genuinely outperform. You don't necessarily need to be the single best person in the world at one thing. What's often more powerful is combining 2 unrelated skills in a way that creates a rare, distinctive advantage. What author Scott Adams calls a skill stack. If you can land in the top 1% of entrepreneurship broadly, that alone is a launchpad. Second, intrinsic motivation. This isn't the follow your passion cliché. It's a more practical point. In the early years of building a company, you will very likely earn less than your peers with stable careers. You will work longer hours with less recognition. The only thing that sustains people through that stretch is genuine interest in the work itself. Grit matters, but grit alone isn't enough to survive a decade of grinding. You need to find the work at least interesting enough that the years don't destroy you. Third, real market demand. This one is non-negotiable, and it's where many passionate, talented people crash out. A business without paying customers is not a business. It's a hobby with a logo. A surprising number of entrepreneurs spend months building websites, registering LLCs, ordering business cards, and posting on social media about their venture before a single dollar has exchanged hands. Product market fit is one of the hardest problems in business, and no amount of passion or technical skill substitutes for it. The honest test is simple. Are people asking you for this? Are they already trying to pay for a version of it? The market will tell you what it wants. Your job is to listen before you build, not after. Once you have a real idea worth testing, the goal is to validate it as cheaply as possible. Don't quit your job on day one unless you absolutely must. Run small experiments. Talk to potential customers. Not to pitch them, but to understand them. Run inexpensive ads. Network locally and digitally. Test assumptions before you pour money into them. The graveyard of failed startups is full of businesses that raised too much capital too early, hired too fast, and scaled before they had real signal. Capital can mask a broken model for a surprisingly long time, right up until it can't anymore. Once you've found genuine product market fit, then you build a minimum viable product and shift into scaling mode. That means marketing, sales, and distribution. And this is where a lot of technically brilliant founders hit a wall. Sales. Sales is one of the most underrated skills in entrepreneurship. In the early stages of most companies, the founder's primary job is growth, which means selling. If that doesn't come naturally to you, find a partner or early hire for whom it does, and pay them well through performance-based structures. A great sales-focused co-founder can be the difference between a company that survives and one that doesn't. Here's a paradox of entrepreneurship that takes most founders years to accept. The ultimate goal is to make yourself unnecessary. In the beginning, you are the business. That's fine. But if you want to build something that scales, something acquirable, something that generates real value, you need to build systems and teams that don't depend on you for every decision. Start by delegating low-value administrative work so your time stays concentrated on the highest leverage activities. As the company grows, layer in sales staff, specialists, and eventually leadership that can run entire functions independently. The book Buy Back Your Time is worth reading on this topic specifically. The central idea is that your time has a dollar value, and any task that can be done by someone else for less than that value should be delegated. Increasingly, that also includes AI systems and automation, not just people. The more operationally redundant you become inside your own company, the more valuable that company becomes. A business that can run without its founder is worth dramatically more to a potential acquirer than one that collapses without them. When you've built something with genuine demand, scalable systems, and strong cash flow or growth trajectory, you face a decision. Keep operating and living off the cash flow, or sell. For most founders, the exit is where generational wealth actually gets created. A $50 million sale can technically push someone into the high net worth category, though after taxes and fees, it's not as transformative as it sounds. A $100 million exit is considerably more life-changing. Beyond that is territory that typically requires either an enormous market or many additional years of scaling. Industries vary significantly in how quickly they can reach these numbers. Technology and software can scale globally with near zero marginal cost. One of the reasons the industry produces so many outsized outcomes. Finance companies earn fees on growing pools of assets. Media companies create content once and distribute it to millions. These business models have structural advantages that manufacturing, logistics, and physical product businesses often can't match without far more capital. Real estate sits in an interesting middle ground. It benefits from leverage and universal demand, but it's also highly capital-intensive and competitive for precisely those same reasons. Let's be honest about what this path actually costs on a personal level. During the years you're building, many of your peers will be thriving visibly. Stable salaries, new homes, vacations, social media highlight reels of apparent success. Meanwhile, you may be grinding through failed attempts, depleted savings, and a persistent sense that you're falling behind. Entrepreneurship requires enormous tolerance for delayed gratification. and for looking unsuccessful for years before you aren't. Your first business probably won't be the one that makes you wealthy. For most successful founders, it's the second, third, or fourth attempt. Each failed venture teaches you something that the next one benefits from. That compounding of experience and judgment is real, even when the bank account doesn't reflect it yet. And even after a significant liquidity event, the challenge shifts rather than disappears. Building wealth and preserving wealth are two entirely different skill sets. Many people who make enormous amounts of money, athletes, entertainers, founders, lose it through poor financial decisions, concentrated risk, bad investments, lack of planning, or other pitfalls. The discipline required to keep wealth is its own long game. Strip away the tactics and frameworks, and what separates people who build real wealth from those who don't often comes down to how they think about problems. Instead of, "I can't afford that," the habit is, "How could I afford that?" It's a small linguistic shift with a large cognitive effect. It transforms a closed statement into an open question and forces creative problem solving. Instead of accepting industries and systems as fixed, the entrepreneurial lens asks, where is this inefficient? Where is the friction? Where is the gap between what people need and what currently exists? Most of the great businesses in history were built by people who looked at a broken or outdated system and decided to build something better. And perhaps most importantly, wealth creation is fundamentally about generating value for others, not extracting it, generating it. The businesses that last and grow are the ones that genuinely make their customers' lives better, simpler, or more productive. Financial reward follows value creation. That's not idealism. It's just how durable businesses actually work. The trajectory of most successful entrepreneurial careers looks like a hockey stick. Years of flat, invisible effort followed by a sudden, dramatic acceleration. The overnight successes you read about usually spent a decade building in obscurity first. Every failed attempt, every pivot, every uncomfortable lesson compounds quietly, until one day it doesn't feel quiet anymore. The people who ultimately get there are almost never the most talented people in the room. They're the ones who didn't stop, who absorbed failure without being destroyed by it, who kept refining their model, protecting their equity, finding real demand, and building toward an exit that would eventually change everything. That's the playbook. It's not complicated. It's just hard, and long, and worth it.